All right, on this episode of Bouts Talking Bouts, happy to be speaking with an individual who's regarded by many as the king of the four-rounders, a veteran of Pride, K1, a lot of different circuits, a well-traveled boxer, also competed as a pro wrestler, and was featured on WrestleMania. I'm talking to Eric Esch, also known as Butterbean. How's your day going so far there, man?
Today is going awesome. How about you?
Oh, I'm doing great. Appreciate you asking. And I was noticing the beginning of the journey there, you kind of had some coworkers wanting to see what your aptitude was for fighting. You were at that 420 mark and had to cut to the 400-pound, tough man limit there. Can you bring me back to that period and just kind of how everything got going initially with the combative career for you there?
Well, the local tough man come to town and they dared me to get into it, because I knew a big, tough, strong guy. And there was a lightweight that worked with us that had won it several years in a row. And he made $1,000. Every time you win, you get $1,000. And we're making $200-something a week take home. So I go, hell yeah, I'll knock somebody out for $1,000. Me not having a clue how to fight or anything. So we trained in his backyard for a week, got ready, and I already had the nickname Butterbean. And we just went in there. I lost my first one. But what happened was I actually won, but they give it to the guy who was a reigning champ for 5 years. He dropped out of the final the next night because I'd hurt him so bad. So I went back ever since then. I always won our place. And then people started chanting Butterbean, and the name just stuck.
Yeah, and then just obviously carved a swath through the Toughman contest, just winning so many consecutively and whatnot. Like, was there a defined moment through that stretch where you were like, hey, I could, become like a pro fighter, turn this into more of like a boxing kind of career, like beyond the Toughman circuit? Was there like a defined moment you remember realizing that, or not so much?
Well, yeah, I've done on pay-per-view with Toughman twice on Showtime on pay-per-view with Toughman, and pretty much when I signed up for any local Toughman, everybody dropped out, so the Toughman promoters wouldn't let me fight in them anymore, and I still wanted to fight and make money. So I said, hell, I'll go after Tyson's ass. So my career started after that.
Yeah, and just such an iconic character on that Toughman circuit. There was that video game that actually came out, and somebody that kind of follows my stuff, Mac Ross, he actually wanted to know just what your thoughts were on just being on that cover of the game and everything like that. Like, was it a hugely important thing to you, or?
Yeah, I thought it was the coolest thing ever. I was an amateur, basically an amateur fighter, and I had one pro fight, and it was a video game made after me that I was on the cover of, which was pretty awesome. Which also helped my career. You got a video game made before you have your first fight. Tyson didn't even have that. That's like something it don't happen. It's just the weirdest thing in the world.
Yeah, and it must have been especially weird with the backdrop of, at least from what I understand, you were still working a factory job when you were the main character in a video game. So probably like similar coworkers that initially wanted to get you in the Toughman contest are like, hey man, you're on the cover of a video game. What was that whole dynamic like? Because that's a curious timeline.
It's just, I've just been blessed. That's all I can say. You do good things and good things come. Who ain't done screwed up things, but good things. I've been blessed with good, good fortune things have happened. Just whenever I'm like down and I'm away, like I feel things are going downward spiral, something always happens that just makes you go right back to the top. Here lately, the social media, I've been getting involved with that. And I've never really looked at social media before. I've had a Facebook, I've had a MySpace, but I just got on TikTok, and within the first week, I'm up to 60,000 people. Within 2 weeks, I'm at the 70-something thousand on TikTok. And I tell you what, it shows the fans are still there for me, and it makes me feel very appreciated of them. And I do a lot on them on TikTok for the people, just because I enjoy the social media aspect of it. That way I can relate with the people that did follow me back when I was fighting.
Yeah, and what's your handle on TikTok for people that want to give you a follow there?
It's Butterbean King of 4 Rounds, because I'm the king of the 4 rounders. So I figured King of the 4 Rounds was perfect. So it's Butterbean King of 4 Rounds.
That's awesome. Definitely a great follow on TikTok for sure. But I kind of wanted to pose this question to you just because I noticed this was generally the dynamic throughout a large part of your combative endeavors there. Like, as your popularity grew, it seemed like more often than not you were like the out of town fighter taking on like the hometown guy who's like looking for a notable win. Was that like a role that you relished in and kind of enjoyed in a way, or is it kind of inconsequential?
It's a huge rush. I mean, to have people that enjoy watching it fight, no matter what, it's the biggest sugar. I mean, it's the biggest rush you can get. I mean, I can see why people take drugs. That was kind of my drug. To be able to entertain me and make people happy. I've been setting up at a market in the Smoky Mountains. It's a flea market, actually. A buddy of mine hired me in to set up at the booth. It was a paid appearance. And I've touched some people, I've met some people, and it's like, just meeting me made them happy, and I got as much out of it as they did. If I can make somebody's day better just by meeting them, so I went back 2 or 3 times more, and I'm enjoying going down and hanging out with people, just to meet meet people, and if I can make a couple people happy a day, it makes the world better.
Oh, absolutely, and that's a great attitude, man. But you talk about just, competing as an enormous rush. Like, what was it like to win the IBA Super Heavyweight World Championship with just a compounded kind of rush? Because it seems like that's something you take great pride in.
Yeah, that's a huge. I actually won 3 world titles in boxing and 1 in MMA. I was the first one ever to win a boxing title hold a world title in boxing and a world title in MMA. I was the first ever to do it. The Guinness World Book of Records is not one to recognize it because they say Elite One MMA out of Canada is not as big as an organization as UFC, which it's not, but it still should count. I held a world title in that organization.
Oh yeah, great accomplishment, and I'm a Canadian lad too, so definitely tip my cap to you on that one for sure, man.
So I was the first one to hold the world, both world titles, and 1 in boxing and 1 in MMA. I was the first one ever to do that.
Yeah,
to me, it's an accomplishment. I mean, like I said, I've been blessed. I'm even more blessed with 9 grandkids. I mean, I have 3 kids and 9 grandkids, and I get to spend more time with them than I ever imagined getting to spend with my own children.
Yeah, well, it seems like you have a great family dynamic and are just appreciative of the fans and stuff like that. But you were talking about just your MMA endeavors and stuff like that, and also I kind of wanted to, I guess, briefly cover kickboxing with this too. It seemed like Mark Coleman was initially suggesting to you to give, K1 a try, and then kind of Pride came thereafter. Like, what was it? Was it an initial thing where you were like jumping at the bit to do it? Like, were you kind of having to think it over a little bit? Because like obviously with like the kickboxing, yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, because sometimes like boxers, just because there's the additional variables and stuff like that, like maybe they're like, oh, I got to think this over a little bit. Like, was there the immediate like I want to do this kind of reaction when Mark Coleman suggested that, or where were you at during that timeline?
Well, what happened was, I'd seen MMA and going, I could do that. I mean, hell, I could do that easy. It's not a problem. A little bit on the ground, a little bit stand up. There's a lot more to it than people realize. A lot more than I realized, to be honest. And I was telling Mark Coleman, yeah, hell, I'd like to try that. Next thing I know, I got 13 promoters all over the world calling my cell phone wanting me to fight overseas. So I took one. I used a guy named Kawasaki. He booked my first fight in K1. I fought a guy named Fujimoto, and he kept kicking me. I said, this shit hurts. I can't. It's like, this ain't no joke. He's moving pretty good. It hurts. I just want to knock him out real quick and got it over with. And then I fought and learned more, and then I went and took classes I already took karate, but more about defense for leg kicks. And then they wanted me to fight the ground stuff. I never fought ground, so sure, why not? So a big learning lesson there. Then I went to American Top Team and learned the ground game. American Top Team has helped me more than anything. I have a couple other friends that work with me. But yeah, working with American Top Team really helped a lot.
Yeah, and I was going to ask about the ground game, because on your MMA record, I was noticing there were almost as many submissions as striking finishes. And after your fight with Zulazinho, you yelled into the camera, "Jiu-Jitsu Bean." So what was it like to just see that kind of measurable growth in your game? Because, 7 submissions to the 8 TKOs, just shows that you're a multifaceted mixed martial artist in that regard. Like, how proud were you of the growth there?
Yeah, the learn another aspect of fighting in the ground game in jiu-jitsu I enjoy doing it. I mean, you got to learn that stuff. You got to learn to stand up. You got to learn how to ground. There's so much to MMA that people don't realize. And, I had a lot of learning to do. And I think I've done real well. The last Pride show I submitted to, like you said.
Yeah, you got that key lock victory over Zulazinho in the first round there, and that was a big fire up for sure. But in doing my research on you, I was noticing that at one point you were in discussions to fight Ernesto Hoost, and you were talking about wanting to get more kickboxing experience, and kind of just didn't really pan out when you were wanting to take that fight. But also I noticed the Mark Hunt fight in Pride was one that kind of fell by the wayside. Beyond those two fights was there any other fight throughout your career that was discussed to you that ultimately just didn't come to fruition that you really wanted?
What happened with the Mark Hunt fight, he couldn't get in the USA. He had a bar fight, and he was banned from coming back in the USA. That's what happened. He couldn't make it here to the fight. So they replaced Sean O'Hare with him, and instead of a stand-up fight, it went to a full MMA fight. I wish that fight would really happen. It would have been great. It would have been a hell of a fight.
Oh yeah, I mean, like following this.
Overall, I enjoyed the whole experience with working with the Japanese and the MMA, and I loved it. I mean, I liked it. I fell in love with it as much as I did boxing.
Yeah, and you didn't really notice any of, like, the, I guess, Yakuza involvement in Pride, because some people have stories about getting paid in, like, duffel bags full of cash and stuff like that, but no direct interactions for you, based on what I was seeing from prior interviews?
I lost you right there. My reception must be bad.
Oh, no, it's okay. I was just talking about the Yakuza involvement with Pride, and was there any level of interaction you had with them? It seems like from prior interviews you didn't necessarily notice that, but I just thought to ask because it's so much part of the, I guess, Pride folklore there.
With the Japanese?
Yeah, the Yakuza involvement with Pride.
Yeah, it was a lot. I mean, I become when I fought Mike Bernardo, I lost the fight, but I took probably 20 direct leg kicks, 15 or 20, and I couldn't even stand up. But because I kept getting up and going, I become like a superhero there, because no person's supposed to be able to take that kind of punishment and keep going. So that helped with the Japanese fans tremendously. I mean, I couldn't go nowhere in Japan. I was like, I was like a Godzilla over there. I mean, it's just like I was attracted, just flocked to me. I love the Japanese fans. They're awesome.
And another part of your MMA career I thought was curious was you got to fight on that Seoul Yama pit fighting event there. This is an event that I talk with a couple buddies about a fair bit just because it was such a curious kind of thing with like the scooped out kind of dome and stuff like that. What were your memories of competing in a framework like that? Because it was certainly very unique, to say the very least.
Well, what happened in that fight with me, the ring wasn't the factor. The ring concept was phenomenal, especially for the fans aspect. It was a bit awkward, but what happened when I slipped and fell, and when I did, it dislocated my hip, and I'm having hip problems from it still. So my hip, I couldn't stand back up. I couldn't get up. My hip would not let me. Nobody really knew that in that fight. Even I'm trying to think of the guy's name that I was fighting. He just passed away not long ago. He didn't even know it, so I talked to him afterwards.
Your opponent for Yama pit fighting you're talking about?
Yeah, when I went down, it was from a slip. I punched, and when I punched, it popped my hip out, and I just kept going and went down. I couldn't get up because of my hip. And I've had problems with my hip ever since then.
I was going to say, that's probably one of many injuries that I guess motivated you to eventually kind of hang up the gloves, right? Like, you probably have like a myriad of different injuries like that.
That one was pretty much the end because of my hip. I mean, I'd had torn biceps. I fought a guy named Bill Eaton in a rematch, and I detached my bicep and still knocked him out with the other hand. And our first fight was a draw. So, I mean, I'm determined. Pain don't stop me. It's just that you can't stand on the limb, you're kind of in trouble. So that fight pretty much ended my career. It really slowed me down a lot because of not being able to stand. And then there's still that injury still today. I'm going to have to have hip surgery because of it.
Yeah, definitely a rough sport for sure, man. But hopefully you're, feeling better nowadays and everything like that. I kind of wanted to ask this question though. A fan from the show and everything kind of posited this to me. Jeff Jetro on Twitter was wondering about your thoughts on just the rise in popularity domestically of bare knuckle boxing and just what BKFC and some other leagues have been doing for bare knuckle in the last few years.
The crazy thing with the Unified Bare Knuckle Fighting Association, I was ranked one of their number one heavyweights and not even had a bare knuckle fight. We were talks with them about me fighting before I hung it up. But yeah, I think it's very interesting. The only thing gloves do is protect your hand. They don't actually, I'd rather get hit a bare knuckle because you can't hit as hard. That's why Hoist Gracie liked fighting on the ground with no gloves. Because you can hit harder with a pair of gloves on than you can without. Because the gloves are only designed to protect your hand. It's not to protect the other person's face. It's only to protect your hand.
Oh, definitely. And just out of curiosity, who was discussed as a possible opponent for that bare knuckle fight of yours, or did it not get that far in the negotiations?
We never got that far in negotiations. They were way off on the money. I mean, they were talking a quarter of what I made in my boxing, and it just wouldn't. They would have been more beneficial. They would have got more benefit out of it than I did. The money wasn't there.
Yeah, fair enough. I imagine the scene would be a little different for it nowadays, just with the rise in popularity and stuff like that and all that. So hopefully the paychecks are a bit better just for the sake of the guys out there doing it.
Right. But it's still not. They're still not making boxing money like the big name boxers.
Yeah, I can definitely see that being the case. Still rising and everything like that, but yeah, still bit of a ways to go.
It's not to that point. Yeah, I think one day it will be. Just like UFC guys are not making nowhere near what boxing is. But they're getting close. There's no UFC making $100 million, $60 million for a fight, like they do in boxing.
Well, to that point, I imagine some of the Pride and K1 payouts must have been pretty sizable, what with you crossing over from boxing to go and compete in those disciplines, kickboxing and MMA.
Yeah, for me, it's real. I mean, I made a little bit more money boxing, but it was real close. It was worth doing it. I had a lot of fun doing it.
Yeah, and speaking to the...
Sometimes money's not all about it. That's not what it's all about. You got to enjoy what you're doing. I had so much fun fighting. And that's, people ask for my advice. What advice do you have? I go, you're not out there to prove nothing. You go out there and have fun. Have fun with what you're doing. You'll be so much more relaxed and you'll enjoy it more. And you'll make more money overall. You got to look at the end game.
Yeah, for sure. It's all about having fun. And it seemed like you had fun on Hulk Hogan's Celebrity Wrestling and just had a good run in pro wrestling overall. I was seeing you collected some hardware there. You had the PWS Heavyweight Championship and got to wrestle on some different shows like the JCW Juggalo shows and stuff like that. What was it like to get to work shows like that? I mean, people talk about the, Juggalo culture a fair bit and just how, raucous those crowds can get and certain things like that. What was the experiences like in those regards?
It was amazing. It's like I said, good karma's always come with me. Instead of having to do all the indie shows for 10, 15 years before I got a chance to fight, to actually take part of the big shows, I got to take part of the big shows, get out right off the bat. My first wrestling was WWF in the day, and it was a pay-per-view with Mark Mero.
Yeah.
That was that's my very first, and, then I went to, I was in WrestleMania, which, a lot of fighters, even though they've been in it for 20 years, they don't get to go to WrestleMania and be a featured fight.
Yeah.
I've been, like I said, somebody has blessed me from up above or from somewhere, to be able to, the opportunities and the people liking me helps a lot, and that's why I give so much to make it entertaining to watch anything I do. I want it to be fun for the people watching. And I really respect all the people that watch. That's why, I do a lot of appearances and meet and greets, and I get so much out of it.
Yeah, it definitely comes across, man, that you appreciate the fans and stuff like that and just the sentiment there. And yeah, I think a lot of people forget that you were initially involved with Mark Mero. You kind of had that angle where, you stole Sable and stuff like that. But part of that, I thought...
It was fun to steal, too, let me tell you.
Part of that...
You become good friends with Mark Anthony. They were actually married at the time. A lot of people don't know that. and now she's married to Brock Lesnar.
Yeah. Yeah, but I understand he played.
If it wasn't for my hip, I'd steal it from Brock, but my hip ain't gonna allow me.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, it seemed like...
I've been happily married for, 30 plus years.
Yeah, and the amateur wrestling background in high school, I believe in a prior interview, was something you were talking about, and I think you'd kind of used that as a base to work out some, pro wrestling psychology with Mark Marrow, and he kind of showed you how to take certain bumps and stuff like that. Was that kind of the early introduction to, like, the pro wrestling methodology, just Mark Marrow kind of showing you some bumps and whatnot?
Yeah, it's someone that, he coached me a lot, he helped me a lot, and I had a lot of other, smaller wrestlers come in and help me learn the basics, and then once I did, that helped with the Hulk Hogan show, too, because I already knew how to take the bumps, I already knew a lot of the rules, you never grab the right arm, there's a lot of rules in boxing, in wrestling, a lot of people don't know that you just don't do. And I was taught a lot of the rules before I even went into it, so that helped a lot.
And I kind of wanted to talk about this because you've been in fights with so many different opponents that have so many different, stylistic proclivities and whatnot. Like when you fought Ikuhiso Minowa at the Pride Bushido 13 event there, he threw the 2 drop kicks at you to begin the fight. Has there been anything that's happened to you in a fight that has kind of thrown you off in a way whereby you're like, what the hell is this guy doing? Because someone throwing a couple drop kicks back to back strikes me as a little odd.
No, not really. Especially I knew what I was getting into when I got into it. Except the first K1, I didn't expect the kicks to be as effective. When I got kicked by Genki Sudo the first time, he left toe prints on my. He left toe prints on my leg.
Yeah, because a lot of guys. Yeah, no, I'm still here.
Hey, look, I'm fixing to have to wrap up because I'm getting into really bad traffic, and I'm going to have to get off right now. But hey, I really appreciate everything. If you got any more questions, I'd be more than glad to answer it another time. We'll do this again.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you talking, man, and I'm definitely interested in the follow-up there. And yeah, great getting to talk to the King of the Four Rounders, veteran of Pride and K1, and just a well-traveled boxer and also a good guy. Thanks for the time, Eric, and you have a good rest of your day there, man.
Hey, you have an awesome day too, my friend.